And welcome to the last unit, Unit 6. Well done, we've got there on the 5 units. This one is all about first aid. So what we're going to learn in this last unit? Well, how to deal with accidents and emergencies. So by the end of this, you'll know how to deal with injuries and signs of illnesses and know how to follow emergency procedures. If any of you are first aiders, this obviously will be would have been formed part of your first aid qualification. However, for you that aren't, take this as learning something new. For you that are first aiders, it'll be a little bit more of a recap. Okay, just obviously in terms of the unit. Okay, so first of all, what do we need to know? We need to know what the definition. What is first aid? Well, the first aid is the immediate treatment of an individual or individuals that has fallen injured or ill. It's not a full medical treatment, but something that can be done to stabilise a person until that individual gets to go to, most importantly, medical professionals. So what would be classed as a medical professional? Well, for me, it would be someone that is an ambulance, a paramedic, even a police officer and a fire brigade. They obviously have that capacity to deal with that individual. As a first aider, and in the stewarding world, you have to understand recognise what these illnesses are, recognise them when someone is potentially falling ill, and then reacting accordingly. And the way you do that is by knowing what your venue procedures are. Venue procedures differ compared to every other sort of different stadiums, different events, arenas, whatever it may be. Some people may say you're a first aider, you deal with a first aider. Some of them may actually say no, you have to report it onto somebody else. So it's important that you know the procedures. We will go through this in the classroom, because obviously there's elements of this portfolio that if you don't know the answers, we will go through obviously when we meet. What you will find at some of the events that you work at, especially obviously at stadiums, there will be St John's Ambulance or trained first aiders that are there. The most important part is getting the individual or getting the first aiders to that location straight away. So, what are the main aims of first aid? Well, it comes under 3 P's. The first one is to preserve life, the second one is to prevent the condition from worsening, and the third one is to promote recovery until you can obtain qualified assistance. So, how do you think you preserve life? Well, definitely on a 1 or a 3 day first aid course, or alternatively on this video. You cannot be taught in terms of how to save lives. Paramedics do that. Okay. The best part of, or the best way to actually understand about preserving life is something known as early recognition. What early recognition is understanding when somebody requires immediate medical assistance. Now, whether or not that's from a first aider, or alternatively requires 999. So it's the early recognition of it. Okay. The next part is obviously prevent the condition from worsening. So how do you do that? Well, if you're a first aider, you will deliver first aid. The St John's Ambulance or the paramedics will deliver first aid or deliver an assistance to that injury. For example, if someone's cut themselves, they'll bandage it up. If someone has potentially not breathing, they'll deliver CPR. So that's what it is. Another way that you as a steward can actually prevent the condition from worsening is by giving them reassurance. Why is it important that you give these individuals reassurance? It's purely simply for 2 reasons. The first one is it's the best thing that you can do in the event of an accident, an emergency or an incident. Secondly, most importantly, all the time that individual is their heart rate is going and they're thinking about something else and you're not calm and you're not reassuring, that will actually then cause them to panic even more and will actually make the condition worse. So the best thing that you could do as a steward, if you're not first aid trained, or even if you are first aid trained, and your policy is to obviously speak to your supervisor, get St John's Ambulance, is to reassure them, tell them it's okay, help is on the way. Because all the time they do that, their heart rate will actually reduce, which in turn enables them to recover a lot better. Secondly, let's talk about something else. You can talk about colour, talk about their children, talk about anything that you want to that will take their mind off of it. Okay, that's what you do to prevent the condition from worsening. And third, the next part is promote recovery. So how do you promote recovery? Well, you promote recovery by putting them into a position or a recovery position, or putting them somewhere that is out of sight, alternative what they feel comfortable with. And what I mean by out of sight, if there's someone who's falling down the stairs and they're in the stadium, then potentially everyone's going to be looking at them. If possible, try and bring them to somewhere that's secluded. Bring them away from everybody else, because you'll find a lot of individuals, when they've injured themselves, they get more anxiety when people are actually looking at them rather than actually the injury itself. Okay, and the other option of recovery is put them in a recovery position. But obviously, if you're a first aider, that's obviously the next protocol. But the most important things that you can do as a steward with the 3 Ps is preserve life. Early indication, recognise when someone does require immediate medical assistance, and prevent the condition from worsening. So calm and reassure them. Okay, if you're first aid trained, great, deal with the incident. If not, calm and reassure them. And most importantly is get that qualified assistance straight away. You are the eyes and ears of the ground. Make sure you do get that assistance straight away. Okay, so in order for you to do that, what should the stadiums do? Well, the stadiums must provide suitable first aid facilities. For example, first aid rooms. In every single stadium that I've ever been in, there are first aid rooms. They normally range between 3 or 4, one on each stand, to 5 on a level. So it really comes down to where you're working, but they will provide a first aid facility. They must provide first aid equipment. First aid equipment ranges from plasters all the way through to an AED. And that's an automatic external defibrillator, otherwise known as a defib. And first aid trained staff. So obviously this qualification it brings in an awareness of first aid. However, it does not give you the license to practice first aid. You will not get a first aid certificate, a separate one out of this. It's just more about an awareness and a recognition. Okay. So who would be classed as first aid training staff? So you've got a crowd doctor. No, there's doctors obviously mostly there for the players, but sometimes now the players doctors, they can intervene in immediate medical assistance in the crowd. I have seen this happen. Paramedics. Now, obviously, paramedics at some stadiums, they'll have an ambulance themselves there that will actually. And again, what you'll understand is a lot of these stadiums, they will normally have around about 2 to 4 ambulances. They'll have one or two for the players, and then obviously some for the crowd. So that there is that facility there. And trained first aiders. Normally St John's Ambulance or the Red Cross, they will be the ones that you'll see that you'll get called upon. So they will 9 times out of 10 be at the majority of stadiums, events and festivals and things like that as well. Okay? So a lot of the first aid issues you're going to come across is about going to get them to the incident or getting the individuals to the first aiders. So, what type of illnesses and injuries are you going to come across at an event? This doesn't have to be a football stadium. This could be an arena. This could be a festival. Okay. So the minor ones, again, this all follows in your portfolio. The minor ones are going to be bruises and cuts, grazes, dehydration, headaches, stings, and sickness. They're the minor ones. They're the ones that 9 times out of 10 you would pass over to the first aiders. And they will be able to deal with it, and then you see them 10 minutes later, potentially dancing again or sitting in the chair that they were in. What class as major ones? Well, broken bones, large cuts, heart attacks, strokes, diabetes or diabetic attack. Obviously, someone doesn't have their insulin with them or doesn't have their medication. Anaphylactic shock, drug or alcohol-related illnesses. These major ones would be the ones that they immediately would have to get immediate medical assistance. Okay, things like broken bones, heart attacks and strokes, they would go to the ambulance. That's why it's important in the first P that you have preserved life, early recognition, recognising when that's the situation, okay, and passing them on. So, what can you do? Well, as we said before, that's the role of the first aider. So what actually can you do then? Let's make it realistic. The most important thing is to remember your own safety. Do not rush in and get hurt yourself. Remember your dynamic risk assessment from Unit 5. Remember the conflict management. Remember the safer approach. Is it safe to go in there? Take a step back. Regardless if it's a conflict situation or a medical emergency. You don't know what's happened to that individual. That individual might have had a heart attack or something in stand, which is nothing sinister, or that individual might have been punched, or God forbid something else happened. Is that assailant, the person that did it, are they still there? Are they still around? You go in to help that individual. Who knows what's going to happen to you, all right? So remember that safer. Remember the dynamic risk assessment, okay? So do not rush in and get yourself hurt. So use the safer model. If you're able to go in, or once you've spoken to the individual, try to keep the casualty calm. Remember, reassure them. It's important you reassure them, because that way then it promotes that recovery. Also, take action to protect yourself, the casualty, and others. That could be in terms of in the safer model. The F, you've got F, which is find help. Try and find help. Try and get someone else to help you. Response teams, your supervisor, whoever it may be. What you also might be able to do is get that person away from the situation. Obviously, don't move that person if it's not safe to do so. If you think that it's not safe to do that, then obviously you need to raise the flag anyway, in terms of that side. But most importantly, everything you should do is report it to your supervisor. Your supervisor gets paid at that level in order for them to deal with that situation. And make space around the casualty so that trained people can access the casualty. So if you can't move that individual, make sure you try and get people out of the way in order for the trained medical assistants to arrive. This is where you're going to need other people. This is the importance of it, all right? So it goes back to do not rush in and get yourself hurt. So, why is it important to deal with them correctly, promptly, calmly, and correctly? So, the prompt response. The injured person may need urgent medical assistance. Look at the major issues rather than the minor. Okay. A calm response. This reassures the person that the situation is under control. There is nothing worse than someone being injured or ill, and someone comes along to help, and they do not understand or do not know what's going on. They don't remain calm. They start panicking. It makes that worse. As a first aider, as an instructor of a first aider, the first thing I tell people when they're dealing with a first aid incident, no matter what that incident is, to remain calm, because that person and other people around them, their family members and other spectators or other people, they will react to how you are. If you're not calm, if you are panicking or getting all out of sorts, adrenaline's going, it's going to happen. They will react to you and they will believe that something's wrong, okay? And you must give them the correct response, because it's paramount for the well-being of the injured party. If that person has broken their leg, the incorrect response is going to try and move that individual, okay? So you've got to look at the correct response. Any incorrect response could lead to a worse situation. Always seek medical advice from your supervisor or the medical team. So, like I say, the first instance, if you're not sure, you need to speak to your supervisor, explain the situation, and make that decision together, okay? So a prompt, a calm, and a correct response is paramount. So what must you know in order for you to provide this first aid, address these first aid instances? Well, first of all, you must know your events policy for providing first aid. Now, this would range, as I said before, from individuals that are first aid trained, stewards SIA, to deliver first aid, or alternatively to report to your supervisor and get a first aider. That is the venue policy, okay? But I'll guarantee you the venue policy across the board will be speak to your supervisor straight away, report to your supervisor, and or on the emergency phone and tell the safety officer, okay, in terms of the control room. That will always be a policy. How you deliver first aid will be dependent on what sort of event it is, so you must know that. And where would you get that information from? That's correct, you get it from your briefing that you have back in Unit 1. Know what you're expected to do in a medical emergency, okay? What you've got to do in a medical emergency is exactly what the venue process or the policy is. But you are there, you're going to be the first person to deal with these individuals. So what you're expected to do from a stadium or an event perspective will always be outweighed or the same as what you're expected to do if you come across someone with a first aid incident. So you've got to balance the two. If a person comes up to you and says, right, okay, I feel a bit injured, then obviously you need to mostly make sure and use the 3 Ps on that individual. However, you may get into a situation where that isn't possible, and you may have to go and obviously follow the venue policy. Okay, so make sure you understand that. Any questions, ask your supervisor. Know who the qualified first aider or paramedics are. That's normally a giveaway because they are wearing green. However, know what they look like, know who they are, and most importantly, know where they are. Know where your first aid is. That's another reason why it's important when your pre-event checks. What's the reason why you do your pre-event checks? Again, it's to find out your local area, find out where you're working, because 9 times out of 10 you may not need a first aider. But I'll guarantee you, if you don't know where that is, you will know where you will there will come an instant where you'll need to find out where they are. So make sure you know your area. Know where the first aid equipment room is, self-explanatory, and you may be required to undergo trainings. You may be required to be a first aider. It's a possibility, okay? So just sort of keep that in mind. So, one of the things after you've done this and you've delivered this and you've been involved in a situation, this is also a conflict management, because we talked about incident reports. You may have to do what's known in terms of this as an accident report. The principles are exactly the same. So what's the reason why you need to do it? Well, it's a legal obligation to record accidents and injuries. And this goes to RIDDOR. We're going to discuss RIDDOR in a second. Information be required in case of legal proceedings. So this could be that someone's been assaulted, punched, or whatever it may be, so it may go to court. Alternatively, it may go to a court in terms of the stadium in the event, where that individual that's got injured may then try and take that stadium or the event to court. And reports can be used to help future planning. For example, if it's raining and someone's slipped down the stairs because the aisle or the steps are wet, which does happen obviously, especially now, obviously coming up to the winter period. If people fall over, then obviously what they would put into place is they would then change the risk assessment. When it rains, they would say, right, okay, they'll put signs up. Alternatively, they would bring some maintenance in to try and dry the stairs. And this would all come as a result of an injury. I don't know if you guys have ever thought about this, but have you ever looked at something and it says a sign on there, please do not touch, or please do not do this, or please not do that? And the reason for it is done a risk assessment. But I will guarantee 9 times out of 10, the reason why that sign is there is because someone has done exactly that and got injured. That is the idea behind it. So they can be used obviously for future planning and to stop and change things. As I said before, the main reason why you're going to be doing this is because the event organiser, the stadium, wherever it may be, has an obligation under RIDDOR, which is the reporting of injuries, diseases and dangerous occurrence regulations, in order for them to report anything to obviously the RIDDOR entity. Now that is in the case of is the death of any persons that are on site, specific injuries to workers which result in incapacitation for more than 7 days, so basically you're off work for 7 days, injuries to non-workers which results in them being taken directly to hospital for treatment, so spectators, so you would be classed as a worker, so if you're off for 7 days, they have to get reported to RIDDOR. That could be an accident or something that's happened as a result of you working. The spectators, they immediately go to hospital. It goes to RIDDOR straight away. They must report diagnosis of certain occupational diseases, Legionnaire's disease from water, infection or maybe of HIV or hepatitis, anything those sort of lines, okay? And dangerous occurrences are certain specific near-miss events. Now, what is a near-miss event? Is when someone is potentially slipped down the aisle, down the stairs, going to their seat, but they haven't fallen over and haven't injured themselves. That is just as important to report and deal with as much as that person has fallen over and hurt themselves. Because if one person does it and manages to save themselves, another person can do it, another person can do it, okay? And the problem is that most people are very reactive. So what I mean by that is that they will wait until something happens to that person before they put something into place. By looking at a near miss, that means you can be more proactive. So that's RIDDOR. So that's your importance. You have a key hand in RIDDOR where you find out what's happened and then obviously pass it on to the powers that be, the supervisor, the safety officer, and obviously that enables them to report to RIDDOR. Okay. So what we've got here as well, I'm just going to flick very next to Unit 6 in the Word document. This is Unit 6. Now, there's bits and pieces in here that you can fill in. There's elements in here as well. For example, we've got minor injuries and major injuries. There's a lot of tick box, for example, if it's A, B, C, or D. So what I'm very keen for you to do in this unit is to have a read through it, have a go answering the questions. We will be going through this when we meet. So if you do have any issues, please obviously go give us a call or give us an email or discuss it at the time. But we will be going through this. But have a good go at it and think about what you've got to do. For example, what is your organisation's procedures regarding accidents? Well, they must be recording the accident without a shadow of a doubt. B, no, you don't need to do anything if nobody's hurt. There is always going to be 1 or 2 answers on this, so we're expecting sort of 1, 2, sort of 3 ticks, okay? The biggest one you're going to come across is going to be, again, the scenario-based, where you have this, we have this narrative, So obviously you read the narrative, and this is what's happened. So in the vomitory, leaning to upper tier, an elderly person loses their footing and falls back down the stairs. That is a emergency situation. So again, these questions 11, 12, 13, 14 and 15 will all be around that particular scenario. So you'd answer it in terms of what you would do, not what the textbook is, what you would do in that situation. Okay. So why is it important for you to remain calm at all times when reporting, responding, doing this scenario? Well, because of this, because you might have family members around, etc., etc. Okay. What you also have in here, and you'll find this in unit, I believe it's unit 2 and unit 5 and unit 6. When we do the scenarios, this is what we're going to be looking at. So you do not need to complete this. Okay, that's for us to complete. But what you have got in here is an accident report form. Now, as it says in here, based on the above scenario and simulation exercise. Now, this refers to this one here. Okay, so you are going to write an incident report based upon that incident that you've read. So where it's got in here, you've got venue, date and event. Please make that up. You can make it whatever stadium you work at. Surname for 4 names. Please make that up as well. Obviously, you can't put Mickey Mouse. Put a name. It doesn't have to be a real person. Again, location. That can be whatever you want it to be, wherever you've worked. Time of the accident, whenever time you're reading this. The nature of the injuries. And was a person sent to a doctor or medical centre or hospital? What we're looking for here, we're actually looking for you understanding that that is an injury and what you've had to do with it. Okay, so the sort of answers you can be in there is report to your supervisor. I've calmed and reassured the individual. Anything of those sort of lines. So obviously that is what's known as the accident report form, which you will be requested to complete. Again, any issues, give us a shout, or we can speak when we speak when we're actually in front of each other. Okay, so again, the accident report forms, we covered the who, what, why, when, and why when it comes to the conflict management, but this is the accident report form. So what's the nature of the incident, what happened, who dealt with it, where is it, what's the location, when did it happen, and who was involved, including witnesses. Now, we spoke about this in Unit 5, but just to recap on this, is that obviously when you're writing this, it is important to get witnesses, because they could actually be the suspect as much as obviously as a genuine witness. Okay, so make sure you have that information. So that is now Unit 6 over and done with. Any questions, as per normal, please give myself or Kelly an email. And any issues at all, when we do meet, we'll do the scenario-based side of it. This will be something that we will be covering. You will be doing a scenario on an accident and emergency. So any questions that you don't understand, once we've done the practical, it might be easier to actually go through it and then answer the question according, rather than just obviously me talking through a PowerPoint. So that is it now. That is Unit 6. Well done on the 6 units. And if we haven't seen you already, we look forward to seeing you. And take care. Speak soon.